meeting to order of everybody here today. Remind you, if you want to address the jury, please come forward without a green card. With that, I'm going to have ask Mr. Wood to lead us in the pledge and to lead us in some prayer.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please recite the Lord's
Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. Amen.
All right, the first item is Mr. Kevin Dookie, report.
Gentlemen, good morning. Speaking to you right now as a private citizen in military capacity. So there's a property owner, resident, and a voter in the beach. And I want to follow up on the letter I submitted to you folks and to the administration in regards to this current ordinance we passed, 10-70, dealing with vendors and not-for-profits. Over the last year and a half, and this issue has come up, we talked about several things, but one of the issues that have been echoed by the police jury and last week was that the reason we're having vendors on Holly Beach because there's no local facilities. But comments were made that in Rutherford Beach, that's not the case. We have a corner, Creole corner in Rutherford Beach that has businesses on there that cater to food, serve food, gas, and meals. The problem we have with this new ordinance is now that we have food trucks on Rutherford Beach, we are basically cutting the legs out financially of these businesses on the corner of Creole. I don't think that was the initial intent of this police board, but now that's the situation. I think this weekend we started the food truck down there. Now, as you know, these trucks can come down under this ordinance if they're sponsored by a not-for-profit. There's a not-for-profit sponsor. They're going to make a profit. That money's not going to stay in the parish. This not-for-profit's going to make some money out of it. Who knows where that's going? But what's going to happen, and what has happened already with the snow cone machine, snow cone truck down there, that local businesses in Creole are losing business. Now, these are people that are residents, property owners, they own structure, they own business, they're voters, and they're employing people up to a dozen or more, I understand, that work down there. And we can't have them undermined by fly-by-night organizations coming down for Saturday and Sunday, creating money out of the beach, usurping it, coming from their pockets or our local business pockets. And furthermore, I'll stop this. Scott, this is, yeah, this is probably this is certainly a district too. But I think another problem we have is that when we have to negotiate with a 501c, so as not to bring more than one food truck down to the beach, because as this ordinance is written, a 501c, a nonprofit, can have 5, 10, 15 food trucks down there. When we have to negotiate, the parish has to negotiate or plead with a 501c. Don't bring too many trucks down. We don't want to murder these businesses. That should be connotation evidence if there's a priority problem with this ordinance. The other issue too, when I stood up at one of the meetings, Mr. President, because I was under the understanding that we would have one 501c, one non-profit sponsoring one food truck, a one-to-one relationship. Well, apparently, the way the ordinance is written, that's not the case. We can have a 501c non-profit sponsor as many trucks as they want. Further, they don't even have to be domiciled. That not-for-profit could be in any parish, could be in any state running an operation. So what I'd like to suggest to you, what I suggested in the letter, I'd like to consider taking a look at this ordinance again. I think it needs to be revised, I think it needs to be amended. First thing, I think we need to have a cutoff for Rutherford Beach. 1070 already has a cutout for Hackberry. These trucks can't go to Hackberry, that's 1069 ordinance. I would recommend adding Rutherford Beach to 1070 as a cutout, no vendors down there. Number two, I would suggest too, you do a 1-to-1 clear mistake, a 1-to-1 ratio. One not-for-profit can have one vendor truck. They can't have more than one. Thirdly, too, and this is up to your decision as always, but these 501Cs don't have to be domiciled here. They can be in Calhoun, they can be anywhere. But yet, this ordinance will allow them to operate here. They can actually stay in Calhoun Parish, coordinate with a food truck, with a commissary in Calhoun Parish, come down as many days as they want. So, we have to have a priority to support our businesses, to protect our businesses, and keep our money in these businesses. The other thing, too, I'll mention to you, this ordinance does not cover Title 51 clearly. And I'll defer to Brian King for details on this, and even if the attorneys may have some knowledge of this. Title 51 is a special cutout for, apparently, as I understand it, I may be wrong, for ice cream and snow cone trucks. Apparently, under Title 51, these vehicles can come down, and they can still go to Hackberry, they can still go to Holly Beach, they can go wherever they want to come under the state statute, under the state regulation. I may be wrong on that, but Brian can have a better understanding. So, gentlemen, my request is take a look at the source again, see what we can do to protect our businesses. These are the businesses that are paying your salary, my salary, everybody's salary. Let's do what we can to protect them. Thank you.
Right now, whoever, like with Rocky Rutherford with the snow cone, and then I've seen on Facebook where Mama Rita, which is in Big Lake, is that who's gonna come to the Rutherford Beach Street?
You can't have, right now,
She has a
statute
commissary
that
affairs.
permits for profit is only in Holly Beach. Rocky Rutherford is classified as a non-profit.
Right.
Which, I'll make it, is not a change to ordinance, that's the one that you already had, correct?
Correct. The only thing we could have, you were always allowed to have a non-profit to have the food trucks or do, like,
Pizza place.
Like Gadsden,
Like
Graham,
Gadsden,
every week they
yeah.
live there every week.
right,
They donate us a percentage.
correct.
And what, they came to the,
I think we
Beachfront.
clarified that though, Mr. Lee, because we said either a nonprofit or someone who's sharing their profits with the public to take in that kind of.
Is there a limitation to how many food trucks come into the parish?
The ordinance reads only 4, limited to Holly Beach. There's no limit on the nonprofit.
So, that's always been like that.
And you can have the for-profits at those fairs and festivals.
So what,
so Mama Rita.
what he was just saying was that there's a for-profit income for, to Rutherford Beach.
Fundraising. Only for fundraising.
If you're acting,
They have to donate, right, to the.
Yes, they have to have the donor.
So what they're doing is they're donating to Rocky Rutherford, which in turn is trying to raise money for fireworks for 4th of July. They also mentioned they would give money to the beachfront development to help pay for different things, trash bags or electricity or anything to do to improve Rutherford Beach.
And he's,
They're not taking it to out of town, it's gonna stay right here at Rutherford Beach.
he's requesting that we don't allow that anymore, or if we still allow the fundraising activities parish-wide to disallow it at Rutherford Beach. Don't allow any of the activities on Rutherford Beach to help protect the trails. That's what he wants you guys to look at about it.
How's this going into effect here?
Yes.
So it's in effect, when did it go into effect?
This is no change.
Didn't we talk about that months ago about
2
now
months
let,
ago, but
get
it-
a trial period for Holly Beach, and nothing's gonna happen on Rutherford Beach because of the, mechanics in the different grocery stores over there.
Right, but right now, Rocky Rutherford is a nonprofit.
And that's
Already
always.
they applied for the permit, they can get the snow cone truck there and sell snow cones on Rutherford Beach, as long as the snow cone, like cowboy cones, donates percentage of their net profit
gauges the 15% that they're supposed to pay to these entities?
I just want some clarification, so that I understand. So what we did for Holly Beach has no bearing on Rutherford Beach,
No.
right? Okay, so we clear
They
on
were,
that.
they were isolated, it was gonna be trial basis there to see if we could
Just for
allow
Holly Beach.
for-profits to come, not on fair.
Somebody found a loophole.
So you
they were
won't-
using the truck in Grand Lake, so they found a loophole to do something for Rutherford Beach.
Yeah,
Bingo.
they're doing in Rutherford is exactly what Gaddy's does in Grand Lake when they sell pizzas at the school.
Yeah.
It's the same ordinance that applies.
So what you would want, what he's asking is us to change that ordinance to disallow it in,
Rutherford Beach.
on Rutherford Beach.
So you would have to, no, you would have to say even a nonprofit cannot, no food trucks, not even nonprofits. In other words, nonprofits would be allowed throughout the parish except Rutherford Beach, because right now they can go
Can they go
other
to
places too.
Can they go to Hackberry?
Yeah.
Well, then they can go set up and build a Creole.
Yeah.
If they have a nonprofit
So they
that.
go set up right there, build a Creole, and
Or
John's and
you
T-Boys right
say,
there.
you're gonna have no nonprofit vendors in Creole.
So that's-
You could cut out the road if you chose to change the ordinance.
Real quick, I think. Dr.
Point of information, sir, may I approach or speak from here? Your call, Mr. President.
I can't barely hear you when it's a mic.
Yeah. when that-
I still like to know who watches that, this 15% is supposed to be paid, and where's their commissary at?
That
This conversation's coming out big,
responsibility is
like-
on the nonprofit.
And also, the snow cones, and ice creams do not need a commissary.
Yeah, that's
Oh.
something different stuff.
There's a difference for,
Yeah.
he was citing that statute earlier, but the frozen things don't have to have a commissary.
Okay.
And the way 10-70 is written, the initial sentence is a cutoff for Holly Beach. With the exception that they can't go down to Holly Beach, and it's written to 1070. All we have to do is add and Rutherford Beach, in my opinion.
Well, you must do the whole parish, you know, you say about Rutherford Beach.
Well,
You know.
that comment came up last year too, and I forget that some of you have made comments that your voters do not want food trucks in your districts. So I forget who made those comments, but there were a couple of.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, I don't wanna cut out the Gaddy's truck coming, that's about the only thing coming to Grand Lake, and I see a lot of people utilize that, and I do know that they have give a chunk of money to our school in Grand Lake.
Yes, sir. And
On behalf of that, and I don't wanna cut that
Well, I
out,
think
but I
we
don't
need
wanna limit.
Yeah, but I think we need to get with maybe John County and the few stores they got over there and ask them if they have a problem. Because see, in Grand Lake, Butch didn't have a problem with it, Brown didn't have a problem with it because they give money to the school. So maybe we ought to give with John the businesses in
No,
Creole,
they
say
don't.
they don't have a problem with food trucks.
They got
let it
problem
happen.
with trucks.
Huh?
They do.
They do.
Yeah.
I'll go on.
Now, but you got Mama Rita, which is a big lake business, that's gonna be going Rutherford Beach. So you have a business already in Big.
But the ordinance can be clarified, and I think the reason why this ordinance was generated was for Mr. Gaddis, if I recall the conversation in January on record. So the ordinance was written for a not-for-profit, i.e. the school, having a for-profit truck, Mr. Gaddis. So I'm sure, council can work that.
That's correct. But of course, that is, what they're doing now fits into that. Because you have a for-profit business doing for a nonprofit organization.
Let me
So,
ask you real quick, this truck, it's gonna come in once a week?
I just seen on Facebook, but I was on this weekend, I guess. I don't know.
It's not like they can park it
Policy
there and have it
decision
4 times a
where
week.
they want to allow
Yeah,
it.
they can't park, they got to be in there.
Well, they can't advertise.
So we're not talking about a continuous deal that's gonna continue to affect our
What's good for
taxpayers.
Grand Lake may be
They
different.
can't
It's gonna be
advertise.
beneficial to people on the beach, it's gonna be beneficial to people in Salisbury, and, if we go to Salisbury 20 hours, changing things, stopping.
The only thing I see a benefit is John had a truck, or T-Boys had a truck, or Tracy had their truck, they live here. Short distance, go and come.
or if you had them, if you had a non-frozen thing, and they made their commissary the local business. Now, we talked about that. When we were redoing this before, we talked about requiring them to have their commissary be a local business.
Well, I don't know if we get in trouble.
And to be a commissary, basically, you gotta have a department of health and food kitchen. So, I know Candy has one, I know People Like has one. I don't know about Candy More.
Don't you also have to have a dump station?
Yeah,
Yes, you do.
Then you come,
Yeah,
you
but-
have to have one on site.
Yeah, the commissary has to have.
Yes, it does.
yeah.
I would say, if I have one, read through it.
But, Mr. Joe's right, let's talk to the
I'll
local businesses first, take their opinions under advisement, and we can revisit this next month.
Yeah.
We need to make sure we're getting
I'll
the
tell you what,
information
I know
from
how
the
they feel.
businesses impacting.
We might as well just do away, we might as well add it to it, do away with it. And Cameron, Creole, now about Grand Chenier, because there's no businesses in Mitch, nobody has there's nothing cooking in Grand Chenier. But as far as Creole and Cameron, if we're gonna do it, we might as well do it, add it to it, where not allow any in Creole and Cameron.
So we'll talk to all the local business owners, we'll get their comments in
I'll
writing,
talk to them.
provide it to you guys.
So, I mean, they don't want it,
Yeah,
so,
I would just like to make a comment. Being in the permit department, nonprofit has always been in the ordinance. Since I've been employed here, we have permitted 3 total for nonprofit,
how many years?
13 years. So I'm, you know,
Okay, all right, when you, let me ask.
Quick.
So, you say nonprofit. Tell me exactly what nonprofit is, because from my understanding is they have to give 15% of their profits and they remain with the rest.
Who
Is that
decides,
correct?
who decides the percentage? Is it, I never,
The percentage that they have to donate, that's negotiated between the nonprofit
that's what I
and the
thought.
vendor, but we determine a nonprofit, you have to have a current standing article, nonprofit article, what is it, Sarah?
501c3.
Current. That's
With the
what we check.
Secretary of State, so you have to be registered with the Secretary of State as a nonprofit.
Now, if you want to contest that these groups are nonprofit, then you have to do that with the state of Louisiana. That's not something that we monitor. You have to submit the term in for the state. But the only thing that we look at is, are you current standing? Can you provide the article, yes or no? If it's current, then we proceed with the permit on behalf of it. And so, if, like I said, we can talk to the businesses, we can get their comments, we'll provide it to all you guys. If y'all feel like, if all the comments come back and they think it's hurting their businesses, the one day on Saturday that there's a food truck out there, they can show that they're losing some of their profit and they are complaining about it, we'll have those complaints, we'll provide it, y'all have that when you make your decision. But we do need to talk to the business owners.
Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a good idea, to come back to us and say, okay,
They may
yeah,
say, you know
follow,
what,
it's good.
we don't have a problem with it, because we don't sell snow cones anyways. That might be
Snow
what
cone,
they're
I don't
on,
think
I
they have a
don't
problem
know.
with snow cone, they don't have a problem with snow cone.
So I'm saying, but we need those comments in writing, you know,
Yeah.
we can't react to hearsay and someone speaking on someone else's behalf, but we need to go directly to the source and we'll get it to you guys.
Scott asked them if they don't have a problem with the frozen stuff, how would they feel if everybody else had to have local commissary? That might.
We'll get some information together for you guys.
We'll get that for them. Any good questions? Move on. Next item up will be Beverly Gilchrist with Waste Management.
Good morning. I think I've met everybody.
Come on, Dale.
I want to tell y'all how much I appreciate giving me the opportunity to present this to you. Last month, we sent a letter requesting, and we also sent backup information for an addendum for the contract renewal period. We're coming up to the 5th year, the end of the 5th year of this contract, and there's a 3-year renewal and a 2-year renewal. And so, the current contract that we're in has never had a CPI increase in it, any kind of increase in it. So going forward, Waste Management is referring to as the WST. It's the part of the CPI, but it's more geared towards our type of business, waste, sewer, and trash. Also sent y'all an example of what the average has been over the past 3 years, or 2.5 years. And we would just appreciate your consideration of this, because everybody's experienced some sort of increase. And with the way the world is right now, we never know what's going to happen, but we would like to be able to cover our increased costs on an annual basis and go forward with the 3 and the 2 year agreement extension if we could. So just asking for your consideration on that. Hopefully we've done a good job for the parish and want to continue doing a good job. And if anybody has any questions about it, I'm here to answer.
Basically, you're asking for how much it would increase.
Well, it's averaged, the table that I sent, it's based on the national average of cost of living. So over the last year, 2.5 years, it looks like it's averaged about 3%. Sometimes it's a little higher, sometimes it's a little lower. But I think we got an average of about 3%. From the beginning of this year, it started out a little higher than 3%, but it's come down.
Is this the renewal? Is this the renewal period?
Yes, for the renewal period. We're coming to the end of our final year of the first 5-year contract. It'll be up at the end of September.
So you have a 5-year contract renewal every year?
No, sir. It's a 5-year contract, and then at the end of that 5-year period, there's an option, if both parties agree, for a 3-year renewal. And then
Oh, you're operating now under Cheyenne's.
Yes, sir. SSW contract.
Oh,
Yeah.
Questions?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Sarah, I have a question. Sarah, like, how much would that, the initial increase be if the price hasn't changed in the last 5 years? Are you gonna account for 3% inflation over each year?
It will,
So what kind of price hike are we talking the first initial year?
it's probably gonna be, that's why I sent the table, because it's only averaged through, I think, May, was when I sent the letter,
Okay.
April or May. But each month it changes, the actual.
Do you have an idea what it would cost if it was today, if it was adjusted?
I don't have the table through June, but, for June, but I would assume that it's 3% or lower, because it's on a steady decline right now.
At 3% would be about $21,000 a year. So the contract's going to run $700 a year for everything. 3%.
so you want a rolling average?
Well, what we do is, and it's explained in the addendum, what we do is we get this information from a website, a national website, and it's based on the previous 12 months' growth in cost.
So you're on this average, it's showing like 3 and 3.5, but it's really just saying 3 at the end of the year.
Yes, sir.
So it's not every month that it'll be going up 3%, it's one time a year.
One time a year,
Yes, so it's be about 21,000.
based on the previous year's average of
And
cost.
with the new renewal, you're not asking for any increase other than the
As far as from this day on.
The CPI, yes, sir.
CDL.
Yes, sir.
The house count situation all taken care of and complete? Until
Well, I think the house count has been updated, but we are having some issues about, there's nothing in the current contract that stipulates that you limit it to cans per resident, but it also doesn't allow it. So I think that's been causing a few issues, is if someone has 3 or 4 cans at the road, they're only picking up 2 and they're leaving the other 2. And there's, from what I could tell, and maybe legal read a little bit, that's the biggest complaint we're getting compared to what used to, how the contract operated under Ryan. You know, he picked up everything, and now people are getting trash left at their house. So that might be another detail we need to look at and work in to make sure that we know exactly what we're adjust the price or something to allow for that, but that's something that may need to be addressed.
I'm not aware that there's a limit to what they're supposed to pick up. I do know that one issue we had was they were putting out 55-gallon barrels, and it's very difficult for our guys to pick those up. So we did visit with Emily about it.
I have mine. Four
This
cans
is-
in my house, and they empty them every,
Mine have been left at the curb, and so
yours
is
been left
Joe,
at the curb?
and Joe Higgins too, all along, and they're in the same size and shape trash can that the parish bought for everybody.
We have several places for you. I mean, Grand Lake.
Oh, we bring them a can, they small at them, so they kinda like it. It's not- But they do, they pick up all four cans.
Sometimes I have 3 and they always do mine.
Yeah, mine too.
They don't pick up right
Like
along.
certain sections, I guess, maybe certain different drivers.
Well, if you
I
could-
don't know.
If you give me specifics on that, I'll make sure that the operations addresses that, because I don't think that they're, in the contract, I don't think there's a limit to how many
No,
cans we can.
there's no limit in contract, but I was told that it's because they have to pick up so many more cans at the RV parks. So they're cutting down on the
we
regular tax
we
paying.
need to clarify that for the new contract
Sure.
and make sure that, the last thing I want to hear is, well, you had one too many cans and we left it on the side of the road. You know, ain't nothing more aggravating than go holding cans to the road and you not have to pick. I can understand the 55-gallon drums, that's heavy, you know, and you're not working with 2 hoppers back there. In most cases, you're working with 1. And I can understand that, you know, man lives in a drum.
Oh, one drop.
You know, when you can't use that mechanical device in the back of that truck, it's something else. And we can educate our people to make them understand that, you know, we have additional cans they can purchase, you know, so they can eliminate those 55-gallon drum places. But we don't want no limitation on how much garbage you can bring.
And as far as I know, there is not a
I know.
limitation. If that's being practiced, I need to address that. I didn't know, I wasn't aware of that. I don't think I've talked, we
I've
talked
seen
about
this,
this.
yeah, because it was, one of the ladies, she has 4 kids and put out 3 cans, and then we wanted not to, but they went back and done it. So
Okay,
that was
so maybe that was,
to be done.
okay, well, I will address that issue. That shouldn't be doing, they should be picking up.
Another issue that they have in Beverly is, when they're packed,
Uh-huh.
they're through. They don't come back.
Well, they come back the next morning. Normally, I communicate, they communicate to me and I communicate to her if they, but, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So,
We need to
Sometimes
make
they
sure
don't.
the contract
Well-
says that.
and actually, we would like to probably have another house count this year because I do believe there's been substantial growth in what I've seen and what the driver's reporting. And we shouldn't be, on a route, we shouldn't be packing out and not being able to come back. We should be able to route accordingly to the number of homes. So the house count we had last year really helped us do that, but I think that since that house count, there's been quite a few RV parks added with trailer, with carts and stuff like that.
They do the RV parks, do most of them have their own boxes or?
Some of them do, but most of them got cans,
Yeah.
and, we don't have enough cans to support everybody. So like at Bobby's Park, he went and bought his own cans and put out there, but it wasn't Cameron Parish cans, and it didn't have the device to dump it, but they're a smaller can. Well, they left them all because it's not a Parish can. They had to come back. Well, that week they didn't. We personally hauled it to the dump. The next week they started dumping. But I mean,
When did we change that? Because in the past, those RV parks had to furnish their own dumpsters.
Only in that area.
Why only in that
And
area?
Because the other jury didn't want it in their areas.
And JB, I think, has it.
But JV don't have residents to pick up.
So their parks, their trailer parks are getting,
Everywhere else. Almost like
it's just like a rental house.
that. We bought the trash.
We've always given to rental houses. We always give it to the FEMA parks up there in Lake Charles. It always, in Grand Lake, we always furnish the cans. We had plenty of cans at the time we started the park. I think we're running
The
out.
argument was because of the mobile home parks, people are living in them, that's where the argument became when it came to the RVs.
right?
It's no different.
In Cameron, there is still people that have to live in some RVs, so from the homes, that's changed.
You'll check on that for us?
check on,
Make sure they pick up all the cans in there.
oh, yes, sir.
We need to
Yes,
be,
sir. I'm gonna-
is what you saying for Hackberry is you wanna just be, you don't want,
No. The jury decided, and you ought to remember that, several years ago, that
we decided because that's what the drawer.
Because it was
No, I was the juror.
It was commercial.
It was commercial, and they would, and everybody said no. If you got a RV park, you had to pay for those. And that's what happened in Hackberry, and that's what happened at,
But
at,
you're running into a problem with that whenever it's an RV park, and then you letting a trailer park have them, you letting Gagasham with rental houses have them, but if you get a travel trailer park, you can't have them. Well, there's a problem with that. And another problem is who's paying most of the taxes in this parish when it comes to trash pickup? If you're not gonna pick up the trash over there, well, those trailer parks shouldn't have to pay no taxes for the trash.
well, we don't have any trailer parks in Hackberry. We don't have any trailer parks.
Well, I'm not talking about Hackberry, I'm talking about parish-wide.
We have RV parks, just like everybody else has RV parks. I don't have a problem with them picking up at all the RV parks, as long as everybody gets it.
Well, that, I don't care about it, that was your issue.
But it
Before we
can
get
change.
the order, that's how.
I mean, but we can change that
That's how
and
it's
allow that if y'all wanna be consistent across the board.
I didn't know why we had left Hackberry. I thought it was the wishes of.
No, sir, I was the juror at that time, and I was not in favor I thought the whole parish was that way.
That was done before we placed the first order, that whenever
Yeah,
I got
that's
told
right.
I could order the trash cans, when we.
Maybe
talked
I'm
about it,
thinking,
that's how-
maybe I'm thinking about there was some discussion about Johnson Pike.
I don't think
And
it
it was
was-
because they didn't have house-to-house pickup.
There was discussion about Johnson Bayou because they didn't have house-to-house pickup.
Right.
And we didn't want it.
That's what
At one time,
I
they
think I'm
did,
referring.
at one time, 90% of the people did not want the house-to-house
Right.
pickup. But here, I don't know, that's Sonny's district now, but I know now, I think they're actually wanting them.
Some people do, but they were gonna adjust the hours at the dump or, and
That-
they wanted their dump open, so they take their trash.
Well, like I said, I'm not trying to start an argument, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if we're gonna have RV pickup, RV parks pickup, which I don't have no problem with it, we need to have it across the board, not just because the trailer parks and Johnson Bayou, all those owners had to go out and buy at least dumpsters for these people to dump, or they had to go to the dump. So, like I said,
So
Hackberry was the same way.
y'all pay tax on all them sites?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and our
they
taxes
pay
went to commercial property, it's not household,
It's not
residential
residential.
living.
As long as y'all pay taxes on all your RV spots, being taxed, I mean, that's tax
And
money.
I have no problem with that, but like I said, way back then, like I said, they weren't gonna do
Do you wanna
it.
allow it, Mr. Curtis?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And the jury still all agrees that we should provide residential pickup to RV parks, and we should do it across the board.
I mean, they pay, look, these people pay a lot of taxes for those places. They spend a lot of money getting these places set up, and they pay a lot of taxes, so they shouldn't have to go out and get a separate,
Well, that's an easy fix, that's just, we can fix.
I will do purchase more trash cans, y'all agree with that?
She'll need to do an adjust, y'all need to do another house county included.
Yeah, we'll have to, for Hackberry and County.
Yes, sir.
You wanna do a house count, take count each RV spot, whether there's somebody in it or not.
We don't let it,
You
we didn't
understand
open
what-
the door
but you
next
understand
to
what
it.
No, they gotta be a camp. They
We're
gotta-
paying, we're gonna be paying for each spot.
Oh, we
whether
did,
they're
well, when we
counted.
did the house count, that's why Cameron is so off, because we didn't go if, like, say there's a part that has 25 trash cans, we didn't count 25 trash cans. If the campers wasn't there, they didn't get counted
They
at the
counted
time.
just-
That's how we did over here on this
I'm
side.
good with that.
That's why.
Yeah, we
Because
only
they're never always gonna be full.
Well, I don't wanna see us paying for a bunch of empty spots,
No.
because there's gonna be a bunch of empty spots at times, and
Well, I think they just gotta pick a day and they ride through there and see how many campers is in that park.
The Sunday, when we
I
first started
apologize
this,
for stirring it up, but, you know, we need to,
when we
get
first
this
started
right.
this, we checked them. They charged us a certain amount to come and camera with that trash truck, whether it was full or empty. Okay, they wasn't packing out at that time, so that's why there was agreement with everybody just to go ahead and let them, because we was paying for the service anyway. you know, the truck went backing out. But I think they might be getting close to backing out.
And actually, whatever actually was, actually, I know that.
Huh?
Yeah,
Right
actually
there
was.
was, yeah, Cameron was at, 8 tons, I think, if I'm not mistaken, when we did it.
Yeah.
There's been two areas that we've had to add a partial route to help. Kendall, our driver, used to run the entire parish. He had one section every day, and he took care of it. But the growth that y'all, parish has experienced has made that impossible. So like Hackberry, we actually have another driver that comes in and helps out with part of that route. And then I think in the Grand Lake area.
I guess the main thing we tell them is, we want all the trash to be collected. We don't want to pay no more. And we want to add Hackberry stuff. So you get all that figured out in the new contract.
Well, I apologize for them not picking up certain areas of more than 2 cans or whatever, because that's never been the wording in the contract, that's my understanding. Now, I'm not making an excuse, it could be because we've limited the people on the truck to only 2 people, so there's 1 helper. And they do pack out occasionally. So, but I will address that, they have to follow the wording of the
Once
contract.
we get the contract done and we all agree to it, we just need to, we as drawers need to know exactly why trash is not going to be picked up. And that'll be left up to whoever's in charge of the garbage, so that they can explain to us, so we can explain to people out on the street.
Actually, that brings up another point, and so I don't know what you want to do with the current contract, that there's a lot that probably needs to be amended, or if we just need to scrap it and do something new, but, you know, you're supposed to have a local office with a local number for the residents to call and complain. We've kind of been building those calls, I don't know where y'all are, or if y'all even have intentions of having an office in Cameron Parish with a local number, and have someone housed here, but if that's not something that you feel like you can fulfill, that was on the original contract, and that's something else that needs to be hammered out in the amendment, or we just need to do a new contract altogether. There's a few little things in there that.
I mean, I can make available our office number in Lake Charles, but I don't think that we're gonna put an office in Cameron Parish.
And
What
that's in
she's
the
saying
current
is in the
contract, you're
contract.
contractually obligated to do that, so that's something that needs to be changed as well, if that's not something you're gonna do, as long as you're okay with changing that.
Why don't you sit down, Katie, and just clean the contract up?
We're gonna need
And
that.
I just wanna give, legal, we'll sit down, and, the only thing is that renewal date timeline, you have to, if you wanna.
I have to give written notice today that you don't want to renew the existing contract, that you want to make some changes of it. And so y'all need to give them that written notice today.
Not only that, but the contract has to be adjusted. Don't we have to, put that out for bid? Or do we just accept
We
the
don't have
contract?
to,
It's
I
a
thought we
service.
were obligated to on services.
not for that, no, we don't have to bid it at all, we can just enter a contract with someone for that type of service. No bid required.
You need
But
to
there's a few
vote.
things, so like I said, we'll work together afterwards, if it's a letter saying that we're gonna amend it to fix the current contract, or if it's just gonna negotiate a new one with all those terms, I'm not sure, but we wanna make sure that we, because I think you're supposed to send us a certified letter too, saying that you didn't wanna renew the contract as is, so we just need to work together after the meeting and figure out, make sure that we're.
Clean it up.
Okay. So y'all get together after the meeting, and I guess we will be talking about it next week.
We probably don't have to, if y'all give authority, to legal to negotiate it and everything, they need to take
What
their
about-
formal action.
What about the changes, if we change Hackberry, do we need to vote on that, or anything?
You need to, when you go to your voting meeting, you need to give, President authority to sign a written notice that you do not want to renew the existing contract and that you want to negotiate a revised contract.
That'll be an add-on?
Does that work?
Well, with
Yes,
negotiating new
Karen,
contract,
yeah.
that's not just with that company.
Well, it's
That's a-
amended.
That's an open,
Or is that-
okay, if you amend it, that's one thing, but if you have an open negotiations, that would be with new,
It doesn't include the possibility that you can't make a deal with them and you make a deal with another party if necessary, if y'all can't reach an agreement.
But we have to stop this one somewhere.
You have to give, that's in their contract, is that you have to give them so many days written notice that you're not gonna renew it as it's written now. Which both sides want to
That's
change.
understandable. What about the deal for the Hackberry pickup and basement?
Well, that would all be part of the negotiation.
Okay, so we don't have no action on that.
They just need to change the house counts and.
But y'all, I think you need to add on to put that on the voting meeting.
You got that, Mary?
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Beverly. Just got to jump back to Kevin Whitby. I think he jumped up and talked about, he didn't talk about the house, now we need to talk about the state revised statutes on the coroner's office.
Gentlemen, thank you. Actually, I am here now in an official capacity as the coroner of the parish. There are two statutes on the book that require the coroner's office, the administration, and the police jury to mutually agree with three of us in terms of expenses. And these are expenses that basically deal with investigation and autopsy. Nothing else in terms of the coroner's office, stationary, printer, ink, et cetera, et cetera. These two statutes deal with investigations. Investigations may be medical legal death investigation, a sexual assault investigation, or a OPC or protective trust investigation. Briefly, let me give just a short description of what happens now, and in a way we are compliant with it. If there is a death that I investigate, and I need to do an autopsy, I'll call up the Parish Coroner's office and request an autopsy on the deceased. We transport the body to the deceased, to their office. An autopsy is performed by Dr. Welty, who is a board-certified forensic pathologist, and in today's environment, that's who does the autopsy. And autopsy is 1983, I'm not board forensic pathologist. After the autopsy, there may be toxicology of the blood was done. When they're finished, we get a report back, and we get an invoice from them. I take the invoice, I sign it, I forward it to the administration, they do what they do, and apparently the police jury somehow reviews it, to check those out, it's paid. In a way, henceforth, the three of us, my office, the administration, and the police jury, have mutually agreed upon paying the bill. And I'd like to see that continue, but these two statutes imply that we do it prospectively, that we have to have an understanding up front. And from what I've seen in the past, there's nothing in writing that I see in the coroner's records that this has been brought up and discussed. You have two statutes, LARS 135710 and LARS 135706. I believe Mary put it in the package. The one that I just want to focus on is 5710. And basically what that states that I, as the coroner, need to hire someone to do a part of the investigation, i.e. Dr. Wilson. The police jury and I have to agree on what we're going to pay. Well, in reality, it doesn't work like that. We're not negotiating with Dr. Wilson opinion. We're very lucky to have his expertise and Charlie Hunter too. They served this parish very well. But they send us a bill for $1,900 for a full autopsy, and we pay it. And for the record too, that's a deal. If we go out and have to search for an autopsy in the private world, we're looking $4 grand, $5 grand. Part of this then requires that we have a mutual agreement that we will pay that bill. But the latter half of this statute says if that bill is above $500, and for an autopsy it will be, then we have to have the administration agree with the coroner's office. So what I would like to, and I have District Attorney Jones, I sent her a copy of the record too, so that the ADA can publicize any time. But what I would like to recommend is that we put together a memorandum of affirmation and memorandum of agreement, whereby we know we're going to have expenses above $500, that when it deals with investigation autopsies, we have to understand that it's going to be above $500, we just pay the bills and we pay.
I don't agree with that.
Well, we're doing it now. We're doing it now.
Well, what are we here for then? What are you telling us? We're doing what everything you're saying, what you here to tell us?
If you were listening, what I said, then you were doing it retroactively. The statute implies that we do it proactively, we have a memorandum of affirmation.
Doc, do you have a fee schedule?
No, sir, 5706, I don't work on a fee schedule with the parish.
But there should be a fee schedule as far as expenses other than your salary.
No,
Yeah,
No,
Mr.
can I explain that?
Yeah, so
I'm on a salary position.
yeah, the corners of the state of Louisiana are paid one of two ways. There's either fee for services or salary. Our corner is salary because we get fee for services, even nobody wanted to
When
run.
we're talking about services, about
Yeah, no,
farming out or
Yeah,
whatever.
well, that's separate from, so there's also part of the statute says, necessary and unavoidable expenses in the furtherance duties of parish and parish. And that's what we're talking about here, is there necessary and unavoidable expenses that the office incurs in his duties that are beyond the salary paid to the position of court.
I understand, that's understood. What I'm asking though is before we go out and we say it's gonna cost so much for a DNA test, it's gonna cost so much, we should have a fee schedule. And we can adjust that or go around it, but something till when we get ready to vote what we're gonna be spending, we have an idea what we're talking about, not just an open.
Well, I think the issue with that would be, from our perspective, from my perspective, is that it's not his fees. We're talking about fees for other entities. And I don't think we can necessarily, and this is where I kind of disagree, I don't think we can actually,
Call for.
I don't think we actually have the agreement because we're agreeing to pay something that we don't know the amount it's gonna be. And we don't know the amount it's gonna be because it's gonna be with the South Louisiana Crime Lab or Dr. Wilkie or somebody like that who could just change the fees after we reach the agreement. And we don't wanna pay them anymore, we wanna use somebody else like that. So I think the way it works right now actually works okay.
And I know you just said it's been going on like this for the last two corners, and that's probably the last 30 years.
So why up here want to change it?
Again, maybe council can explain better than I can, but this requires a mutual agreement, in my opinion, proactively, in writing. Here we're talking about it, you folks are up in arms.
We have a responsibility to support his office, I understand it. But before we vote on an agreement or anything like that, we're gonna wanna know about what we're talking about when it comes to monies and what services we could be talking about, which is not to say, okay, we come up next month, we have a $20,000 bill, we have no idea what for. We wanna know, is this reasonable and expected costs?
Well, we can certainly submit that, but it comes to the point that if we're in the middle of a medical legal investigation, then time is tissue, time is evidence.
Would you stop it anyway?
That's a question to you. If you're not gonna pay the bill, what do we do?
Have we not ever paid the bill?
Exactly, no, not to my knowledge, no.
No,
Let me just
So
give you an
what-
example,
so
too.
what's-
Last year, we had 6 autopsies last year that were $1,900. So it's not, and just in terms of our budget, about 30% of the coroner's budget goes to these tests. So there's a bulk of our money that goes to these tests.
So, unless I'm misunderstanding something, we're already doing this,
Yes.
then why are we having this conversation?
I don't know.
Well, that's why I'm.
Well,
That's why
I
I'm.
can give you some advice from
Well,
back
I
in
mean,
the day.
if generally, if we're doing this, you mutually agree to continue it, I'll go on the record video wise and say that's fine.
Do we need an agreement? I mean, is that something that's
I
legal?
don't think
Did you read 57?
I don't think there's, okay, is what I define agreement. I don't need that, but, we have to mutually agree to pay anything above $500,000. I don't think there's no statutory requirement to have a written, memorandum of understanding or CEA or anything like that.
I think that's open for interpretation.
Okay, if you,
I mean,
sure, but,
we don't want to come back to bite us, Counselor, that we pay,
No.
we paid $2,000 for an autopsy, and, they didn't understand that we had to do it. So if we want to continue everything as is, and it's been going like this for decades,
I mean,
it's fair, that's fine with me.
if you don't, I don't think a written agreement in this situation is necessary. I think the system we have right now works. We're not, like you said, how many autopsies did we have last year?
6.
Six autopsies last year. We're not talking about large amounts of money, and
It's $18,000 for testing, autopsies, investigation lab requests.
I'm good with this. I want to let you know, as a jury, I'm going to speak for myself, but we support your office. We're legally obligated to do so. So we're going to support your office just like we have in the past. If there's an issue comes up, then yeah, I have no problem signing an agreement.
I think if for some reason the status quo changes, and, we're seeing an increased cost, for autopsies, for experts, or something like that, and then, and somebody has an issue with those costs, then I think that'd be the time to sit down and see about having a schedule, or put a number bid. Maybe we get autopsy done somewhere cheaper or something like that.
Well, Counsel, let me stop you there, because this office is not a doctor shop.
Sorry?
This office won't doctor shop. You won't go doctor shopping. As long as we have Dr. Wilkie performing our procedures, and this team performs procedures for the regional areas. And just as a side note too, the man is national, Charlie Hunter, the lead investigator, good nationally known individuals, and they're in our backyard. I can only see if he retires. The problem we have, we're getting off the boat here, but the problem we have is there's only 4, I think 5 board-certified forensic pathologists in the state. We're lucky to have one in our backyard. There's about a 500-person shortage of these in the country. So to find one, it's an issue, number one. But number two, to find one, we may be paying private rates. If that day comes, we'll certainly let you know, but we're trying to avoid that.
I feel like we're borrowing trouble. We're waiting for something that hadn't happened yet, I mean.
Can I say something? It's mainly just like something to help control the cost, the provisions to protect the jury from maybe like the coroner choosing the highest person to do services because maybe they're their best friend, and after the service is already done, you have to pay it, you're obligated to pay it. So you mutually agree, you're gonna tell the coroner, we're not gonna pay any bills for autopsies over $3,000, so don't even get it done. Then he knows, well, I better go and make sure, if I want the jury to pay it, I better make sure I stay under that budget. It's just a way to control the budget where he's not just going out, spending all the money, and then
So
after
that's-
that, we have to
so
pay it.
that's what he's
Protect
asking.
us.
So that's what he's asking for, is a limitation for
Yes.
him, us to
Yes.
limit him?
Yes.
We
But like
never
what
have.
Matt said, you would be changing it a lot as time goes on, you would have to constantly change it. So if you
I think we'll-
mutually agree and trust your
Before
partner.
it gets worse.
Fine with you, gentlemen. Fine with you.
Lawyer, the legal services says we don't need it, but we're still talking.
With the DA's office and the coroner's office, a note, a memorandum to that extent on the fact that we will leave the operation, financial operation as is in terms of.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that's not,
Yes, we'll do that.
Yeah, well, your national flower is a hedge, I understand that, Counselor, but see if you can do that.
Okay.
That'd be great.
But right now, the trust
Mr. President,
of being efficient and to make sure you keep the cost down, it all lies solely with the coroner. You're letting him make the judgment of what's cost efficient and what's not. And like legal said, if our expenses triple in a year, well, then we might want to come sit down and tell them, we're not going to pay for everything. But as long as it seems like costs are low and it seems like he's doing a good job, then if legal doesn't think we need to do it, then we certainly don't have to do it. We can give them a letter. If that's-
Yes, and often, medicine people get involved with bean counters a lot, we have arguments with bean counters. I appreciate your bean counter argument. We are sensitive to those issues. Time is evidence. If we're in a crime scene investigation, medical investigation, time is crucial. But let me just say up front too, in terms of the budget for the coroner's office, gentlemen, for the record, I took a 12 to 15% pay cut on purpose, voluntarily accepting the office, number one. Number two, the prior juror had.
Why would you do that?
Say again?
Why would you do that? Why would you take a 15% pay cut just to take this office?
Well, I got elected to the office, so but I would say this.
Wasn't you the only one running?
Listen, if you call me at the right time, I probably work for free there. And I'll, if you have any problems with that, I'll invite you to take a talk with me. But number two, the prior jurors, the prior coroner had 2 individuals working in their office. I have none. I'm doing the investigations, I'm doing the reporting, I'm doing the registrations. And number 3, I spent about $3,000 before I took the office in terms of training, courses, education, out of my own pocket. So I'm very sensitive to saving taxpayers' money. This chair I sit in, those chairs you sit in, we don't own them. They're not from us. We're there for 4 years. volunteer that respects the voters. But Mr. President, if I can, let me just take a few minutes, because I wanted to describe what the coroner does, because I think it's a big misunderstanding of our responsibilities, if I may. First of all, the state officials. State officials with state duties, but with jurisdictions limited to where we're elected. So we're not employees of the parish. I don't work for the administration. But unfortunately, the legislature and the wisdom stuck the parishes with an unfunded mandate for coroners. So you're stuck paying for the coroner bill. The legislature's don't deal with it. We're known basically for pronouncing people and birth and death certificates. That is a significant portion of our job. It's a medical legal death investigation. By statute defines how we do it and what we do. Secondly, you may not know, we're also in charge of medical investigations and evaluations for sexual assault cases. By statute, we're required to interview, examine, collect evidence, store evidence, present evidence, work with sheriff's departments, work with judiciary on that. Thirdly, and very commonly too, we're in charge of protective custody orders. That is to say, the coroner in the state of Louisiana can actually involuntarily commit someone to a medical facility for treatment and assessment of psychiatric or mental illness. We have strict criteria to meet that, but that is a big portion of the job here too. And let me just add, that can be a dangerous aspect. If we go into homes where we may have psychotic people off medication, we may have drug people, sympathomimetics, cocaine drug, so that can be dangerous. Fourthly, we sit on sanity commissions here. In the court system, under criminal proceedings, if a judge has a request to determine if that inmate, for example, or defendant is mentally competent to stand trial, a coroner, psychologist, or psychiatrist can form a commission and evaluate that person. Fifth, under state statutes, again, we have authority to provide medical service to the jailhouse. And finally, under state statutes, we are considered peace. We are peace officers. As such, we're allowed to investigate. We can arrest for criminal felonies, misdemeanors, and we're allowed to carry sidearms. So that is the spectrum of what we do.
So how do, we never had a corner on the carry side.
I believe in every corner.
That just makes sure you see.
Let me say two years strong. I go to OPCs. When there's an order for protective custody, I show up. I don't do it over the phone. So
What are we mandated to the coroner?
As far, you mean financially?
Yeah.
Salary, I'll be honest, I don't know what the salary is.
can I get that question? Sorry.
What are they mandated to provide to your office financially?
Just about everything.
It's the expenses necessary to performance of his duties.
Yeah, and
Just like liaisons.
RS 135706, B, paragraph 1, all necessary or unavoidable expenses, including supplies, instruments, the operation and functioning coroner's office shall be paid by the parish when such expenses are certified by the coroner as being necessary and unavoidable. That's in state statute. We also have a Supreme Court ruling, Carrier versus St. Language.
We had two secretaries, working for the corner, the prior corner,
Two investigators.
Not for a corner office.
work for the coroner's office, prior.
Why do you take on all that tax yourself?
it's a,
They use for fee, like fees.
There's nothing.
I don't know what the range is.
We didn't have anybody that we paid salary.
I think we're obligated to fund the office.
Yeah.
And we're going to fund the office. We have funded the office. We're doing a job. We're doing a good job. We're watching costs. If we run into a problem, we'll come back and we'll do anything we need to do. But for the time being, I guess we'll just keep it like it is. We'll send him a letter. Just,
absolutely.
okay.
And at some point, we want to sit down and discuss a maximum amount per normal.
Like a lot to see.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessary, but it would make people more comfortable. I don't see harm in it, but it would create, you have to vote on it.
It's basically we telling you, go ahead and run your business and, how you see fit. And when you get out of line, our staff will probably come and tell you that we're out, that for whatever inform us, then we'll go talk to you. That's pretty good, that's a pretty good, pretty good deal.
And I will say too, the running joke with the corners in the state is we have the authority to arrest the sheriff. So henceforth, I'm sure we have the authority to arrest the sheriff.
Right, right.
Yeah, we
Good
do.
luck
All
with
right,
that.
all right. Thanks, Bob.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next item up is gonna be, Scott Craig with the Leesburg lateral outfall truck.
He doesn't run out of time.
It won't take but a minute. No, it's just, local, the water on the road here in Cameron, this thing don't happen for years. So a while back, me and Rusty Welch with the Drainage Board of Cameron, Scott Henry, Steve McCall, Wendy Wilkerson, Jerome Carter. Carter's have the property where FDF's at. Wendell's property is right here. We've got T-Boy. Well, between T-Boys and Wendell's, there's a ditch that's open from the river that comes right up to Leesburg. And it fills up behind Tutu's business and behind Sean's business. We've got some costs on culvert, and the parish would do in-house with the cover. We got riprap. I think what's the cost? Maybe $500
For the parish to do the work.
right, you know. So it's still, there's flood right behind the businesses. And also that flap that's, on by FDF over there, I talked to Lee, they did look into it years ago about, and we'll talk about it again, about instead of the flap at the river, come back maybe and fix a box, the flap closer in. So, the drainage board has agreed to pay so much and it won't cost much for that.
But really, that's just a part of the problem. There's a freaking road flood, we got a dam off that road. We gotta put, and the problem is FDF built their tanks and they're off the ground. They're not where you could use that as a barrier for the river coming into Cameron. So mainly it's gotta be a little levee built around their tanks, because that, fixing that problem you're talking about, Scott, that, it needs to be done, but also we need to dam that off, because every time, 5 days out of the week, we flood the
They're
Cameron.
gonna be two projects.
That's two different deals.
That's two different projects.
Yeah, we got this.
Question, we do have a cooperative endeavor with.
We will.
Okay.
The easements
We
from
can
the
do that,
landowners.
we can assist them with the parish hands, parish equipment. Is there anything else that?
That's it, it's something.
Do we need to have any action on that? Okay. So we're
I just
all
wanna let
agreed,
y'all know.
we're all agreed. Look, we need to get the water off the road if we can.
Right.
It's crazy sometimes when it's high tide.
Right,
And Thomas, if y'all get together, then we all come up with something for that second phase.
Yeah, we can do that quick.
The pipe used to be the problem, the water.
Yeah, but it's a road now.
Yeah.
By the time the tide comes, you can see all the way to the river, it's flooded. So the pipe's gonna have to be fixed. That only works if you got a low tide and you can go out, but a high tide.
We need to raise that whole road up.
You said we saw water on the road, that's what you said.
The cheapest thing's gonna be to dam it off, because Wendell's already built his place, that T-Boy's got his, I got a levee across mine. So that's all the way to the gate, so if we can fix right there from Wendell's around FDF, it's done.
What about on both sides, everybody's raising the bump in the road and paving it,
Well, it's coming underneath FDF's tanks,
Okay.
so we gotta build something around FDF tank, which ain't gonna be that much, it's just dirt and rock. We just gotta get a river from the cars.
then you gotta put a flat pipe.
No, it's gonna go out more Scott
Y'all get with the drainage.
when it gets low. The only thing we're gonna get on the inside will be rainwater, we won't be getting river tide. And down the rainwater's going down our sewer drains anyway, you got the drains along the highway, so I think that would be.
So it would go out on Raleigh first?
Y'all get with the drainage board, y'all come up with something, and we'll support y'all the way we can. All right, no action on that one, so, we'll move on to, nothing else for the staff? Anything from staff?
Good agenda about the meetings,
I would like to add to the agenda, that we consider, reallocation of duties in the district.
We've got a reclassification of existing staff to cover, duties of, employee that retired.
All right, move on to the next.
address them?
No, sir, we had scheduled a meeting, and once the COVID-19 comes through, the meeting got put on hold, and, you know, they will have to.
So we,
We're gonna attempt.
was there any changes to their contract? Same thing we always do?
Question number 10.
Mary, you have.
Oh, that is a, workforce agreement that we enter into every year with, it's the 5 parishes. Calcasieu Parish handles it, it's for them to provide different classes for people, try to get them jobs. And, you know, branch out, yeah, welding classes, CDL, everything like that.
Yeah, we've been doing.
Mr. McCollum, he's gonna go.
Yeah, you're gonna go back on, give me a look. Number 11, any questions on that?
Jerry, you hear about the waterworks fund?
With the advent of COVID-19, the interest rate markets dropped dramatically. In 24 hours, the 10-year treasury bill went from 2.25 to 0.42%. So what we have done in Grand Lake, we're trying to bring the interest rate down. The current interest rate on bonds is 3.75%. What we're asking you to do is what the district has done is to approve issuance of $840,000 worth of new debt by way of refunding bonds, to bring the interest rate down to something less than 2.75%.
No new money's raised, just pay off the old
That's correct.
cheaper interest.
Just like refinancing your car for a cheaper.
This sounds like a really good idea. Is there anything we can do with other bonds? Or do it wait for them? to
We don't have any fiduciary open, besides the Gomez one and that thing. But it'd be a good idea if we had something.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Jack? Mr. Jack?
Good.
Good job.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
About 16, they have the money here, county.
Tim is here too.
And we're gonna sell the other trucks whenever we get through. So it ain't like they spending all that money if we get some on the old trucks.
Right. That's, they're buying 2, and these other 2,000, 10,000, selling them.
No, that's one we'll buy. That's used, right? Yeah, we don't have that much on the buy, you know.
Well, that's, y'all say that, but we should be, using the truck.
The trucks we got to plow out, and that's all, the tanks and all that.
Anything else, Charlie? On the agenda?
That's from, anything from staff?
Well, we're gonna have you, you've already been given authority to sign the deed where the parish is gonna buy the property in Hackberry
Right.
for the library, and the landowners are here to sign it. We were just trying to get
Is that, any action be taken on that?
It was already done. We've already authorized it. I just wanted you to hang around so I can just sign it while they do.
If there's no questions from the